The history of the Mali Empire begins in the 13th century in West Africa, marked by intense commercial and cultural activity. The region was then populated by numerous kingdoms and tribes, often in conflict with one another, for control over natural resources and vital trade routes. Among these kingdoms was the Mande Kingdom, located around the Niger River, a strategic region for the trade of gold and salt. At the beginning of the 13th century, West Africa was dominated by another powerful empire, the Ghana Empire, which controlled the Saharan trade routes and was famous for its vast gold reserves. However, after several centuries of prosperity, the Ghana Empire declined under pressure from the Almoravids from the north and emerging kingdoms at its borders. The void left by this collapse allowed new powers to emerge, including the Mande Kingdom, led by the Mandinka. The foundation of the Mali Empire is attributed to a legendary man, Sundiata Keita, born around 1217. Sundiata was a Mandinka prince who, according to accounts, experienced a difficult childhood marked by disability. However, he managed to overcome his weaknesses and became a charismatic leader. In 1235, during the famous Battle of Karina, Sundiata Keita defeated the sorcerer king Samaro Kante of the Soso Kingdom, ending his tyranny and uniting the various Mandinka clans under a single banner. After his victory, Sundiata took the title of Mansa, meaning King of Kings, and established the foundations of the Mali Empire, which would rapidly expand across much of West Africa. Under the reign of Sundiata and his immediate successors, the Mali Empire experienced rapid territorial expansion. It stretched from the forested regions of the south to the Sahara Desert in the north. This expansion allowed control over strategic resources: gold, extracted from the rich mines of Bambouk and Boer, which was highly prized worldwide; salt, essential for food preservation, sourced from the Tagaza mines in the northern desert; copper, and other valuable products traded in trans-Saharan markets. Thanks to this control over resources and trade routes, Mali quickly became a major economic power. The caravans crossing the Sahara transported goods such as gold, salt, and spices, connecting Mali to major cities in North Africa like Fez, Tunis, and Cairo. These commercial exchanges were the source of the empire's extraordinary wealth, attracting the attention of Arab and European merchants. The Saharan routes were vital for trade at the time. They allowed Mali to exchange its riches for rare and precious goods, such as silk and cotton fabrics, war horses from the Maghreb, metal objects and weapons, books and manuscripts, contributing to Mali's intellectual development. It was in this context of prosperity and power that King Musa was born, the future Mansa, who would bring the Mali Empire to its zenith. King Musa is said to have been born within the royal Keita dynasty, a lineage founded by Sundiata himself. Although details of his birth and youth are little known, accounts report that he belonged to a secondary branch of the royal family. He grew up in an environment steeped in Mandinka tradition and strong Islamic influence, as Mali had adopted Islam as early as Sundiata's reign. From a young age, Musa showed exceptional skills in politics and governance, earning him the trust of local chiefs and members of the imperial court. Before ascending to the throne, Musa held an important role in the empire's administration. He managed several provinces and oversaw trade with foreign merchants. This experience allowed him to develop skills in diplomacy and governance, which would prove invaluable when he became Mansa. It was during the reign of Mansa Abubakar II, his predecessor, that Musa gained an even more strategic position. Abubakar, fascinated by tales of the Western Seas, decided to organize a maritime expedition to discover new lands beyond the Atlantic Ocean. He prepared an impressive fleet and appointed Musa as regent, tasked with governing the empire in his absence. According to chronicles, Abubakar set sail with a fleet of 200 ships, each loaded with provisions, soldiers, and sailors. His goal was to cross the Atlantic Ocean and find unknown lands. This project was extremely bold, but it testified to the ambition of Mali's kings at the time. However, after long months of waiting, Abubakar never returned from his expedition. The fate of his fleet remains a mystery to this day. and some historians speculate that he may have reached the Americas long before Christopher Columbus. In Abubakari's absence, Musa was proclaimed Mansa, becoming the new sovereign of the Mali Empire. From this moment, his reign began, marked by an unprecedented period of prosperity and the famous pilgrimage to Mecca, which would make him renowned worldwide. When Mansa Musa ascended to the throne, he inherited a vast and prosperous but fragile empire. The prolonged absence of Mansa Abubakari II, who had embarked on his famous transoceanic expedition, had left some Malian provinces disorganized and weakened. Internal tensions were simmering, and some local chiefs, taking advantage of the power vacuum, had begun to act more independently. Musa quickly understood that, to consolidate his reign and maintain the empire's unity, he needed to win the loyalty of regional chiefs and restore a strong administration. In the early years of his reign, Mansa Musa devoted his efforts to strengthening his authority over the entire territory. He personally traveled to several provinces to meet local chiefs and reaffirm their allegiance to the imperial court of Niamey, the capital of Mali. He also established a decentralized but effective administrative system. Each province was placed under the direction of a governor appointed by the king, often a close ally or a member of the royal family. These governors were responsible for maintaining order, collecting taxes, and overseeing trade. Musa surrounded himself with wise advisors and Muslim scholars, strengthening the centralization of power and the influence of Islam in administration. To prevent revolts and ensure stability, Mansa Musa demonstrated great diplomacy. He did not govern by force alone, but sought to forge strong alliances with regional chiefs. He respected local customs and allowed populations to preserve their traditions while gradually introducing Islamic principles into governance. To strengthen his alliances, Musa arranged marriages between local noble families and the Keita dynasty. This matrimonial strategy helped stabilize the empire politically and unify the various ethnic groups under a single reign. Mansa Musa undertook numerous reforms to improve the empire's administration and stimulate its economy. He simplified the tax system by introducing fixed taxes on commercial exchanges, which increased state revenues without penalizing merchants. He developed agriculture by encouraging irrigation and introducing new crops, notably millet and sorghum. He invested in infrastructure, building roads connecting major cities and facilitating internal trade. Thanks to his early reforms and skillful management of the provinces, Mansa Musa quickly stabilized the empire. However, he knew that his kingdom's prosperity depended not only on internal peace, but also on its ability to repel external threats and maintain peaceful relations with its neighbors. One of Mansa Musa's priorities was to strengthen the Malian army. Although Mali was wealthy and influential, it remained surrounded by rival kingdoms and nomadic tribes capable of launching raids on its territory. Musa increased the army's ranks, recruiting soldiers from all the empire's provinces. He built fortresses along the borders to protect trade routes and strategic cities. The Malian army was composed of several specialized units. The cavalry, made up of warriors mounted on sturdy horses imported from the Maghreb. The infantry, armed with spears, bows, and shields, forming the bulk of the troops. And the archers, who used composite bows capable of piercing light armor. Thanks to this disciplined and well-equipped army, Mali became one of the most formidable military powers in the region. Mansa Musa also adopted a foreign policy based on diplomacy and alliances. Rather than seeking to conquer his neighbors by force, he preferred to forge peaceful relations based on trade and cooperation. He sent emissaries to neighboring kingdoms, offering them advantageous trade agreements and lavish gifts, including gold and horses. Some kingdoms agreed to become vassal states of Mali, recognizing Musa's authority in exchange for his protection. These alliances helped maintain peace at the empire's borders and fostered the development of commercial exchanges. Under Mansa Musa's reign, Mali continued to prosper thanks to its control over Saharan trade routes. These routes were vital to the empire's economy, as they connected Mali to major cities in North Africa and the Mediterranean world. Musa strengthened the security of these routes by deploying soldiers to protect caravans from bandits. He imposed a tax on goods passing through the empire, which significantly increased state revenues. The main traded goods were gold, which made Mali's reputation and represented its primary source of wealth; salt, a precious commodity extracted from Saharan mines and essential for food preservation; slaves, used in agricultural work and mines, but also sold in foreign markets; copper, ivory, and fabrics, which were also highly valued. The taxation of trade not only enriched the empire, but also funded major construction projects, including mosques, schools, and roads. Thanks to his reforms and wise policies, Mansa Musa stabilized the empire and laid the foundations for lasting prosperity. His reign was about to enter a new phase, marked by an event that would make him famous worldwide: his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca. Around 1324, after several years of prosperous reign and successful reforms, Mansa Musa decided to undertake one of the most famous journeys in history: his pilgrimage to Mecca. This journey, known as the Hajj, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam and represents a religious obligation for every Muslim who can afford it. But for a king as powerful as Mansa Musa, this pilgrimage could not be a mere spiritual journey. It had to reflect the grandeur of the Mali Empire and leave a lasting impression. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage was a colossal undertaking, mobilizing thousands of people and enormous quantities of wealth. He surrounded himself with an impressive entourage of 60,000 men, including soldiers, servants, officials, and courtiers. The expedition also included 500 slaves, each carrying a gold bar weighing about 2.5 kilograms. A vast convoy of camels and horses was mobilized to transport provisions, equipment, and chests filled with gold. According to accounts, Mansa Musa brought so much gold that he would literally flood the markets of the regions he passed through with this precious metal. The purpose of this display of wealth was not only to finance his journey, but also to enhance the prestige of the Mali Empire in the eyes of the Muslim world. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage had several objectives. Musa was a devout Muslim and wished to fulfill his spiritual duty by traveling to Mecca. This journey testified to his faith and commitment to Islam. The pilgrimage offered a unique opportunity to forge ties with the great Muslim powers of the time, particularly Egypt and the cities of the Hijaz. By distributing gold and funding mosques, Musa hoped to strengthen ties between Mali and the Muslim world. Through this demonstration of wealth and power, Mansa Musa aimed to inscribe the Mali Empire in world history and show that he led a prosperous and influential kingdom. The expedition's departure took place in Niamey, the capital of the Mali Empire. It was a spectacular event that drew a huge crowd to witness the departure of the king and his entourage. Before leaving, Musa entrusted the empire's regency to trusted advisors, giving them clear instructions to maintain order in his absence. The expedition took the route northeast, crossing the savannas and semi-arid regions of the Sahel before reaching the Sahara Desert. Crossing the Sahara was one of the most challenging stages of the pilgrimage. This vast and inhospitable desert stretched over hundreds of kilometers, with extreme temperatures and a severe lack of natural resources. The expedition faced numerous challenges. Days were marked by scorching heat, while nights were freezing. Although the expedition had planned substantial reserves, water management remained a major challenge. Water points were located far apart, requiring rigorous resource management. Unpredictable sandstorms could disorient caravans and significantly slow their progress. Despite the difficulties, the expedition made stops in several important Saharan cities, notably Wallata. This city was a crucial stopover for trans-Saharan caravans. Mansa Musa was received with honors by local leaders, who were impressed by the size and wealth of his entourage. In Tikrit, another major center of trade and exchange, Musa made generous donations to local mosques and encouraged scholars to join him on his journey. During the crossing, Mansa Musa came into contact with several nomadic desert tribes. These encounters provided opportunities to exchange goods and obtain valuable information about the routes to follow. As a sign of respect and to ensure the safety of his expedition, Musa offered gold and other gifts to tribal leaders. After weeks of travel through the desert, Mansa Musa's expedition finally reached Egypt, one of the great Muslim powers of the time. Musa arrived in Cairo, where he was received by Sultan al-Malik an-Nasir, one of the most influential rulers in the Muslim world. The meeting between Mansa Musa and the Sultan was a major event. Chronicles report that Musa displayed great humility. Although he led an immensely wealthy empire, he initially refused to present himself directly to the Sultan, stating that he could only bow before God. Eventually, after negotiations, he agreed to pay homage to the Sultan according to local customs. During his stay in Cairo, Mansa Musa made extravagant donations. He distributed large quantities of gold to the poor, scholars, and Egyptian dignitaries. He funded the construction of mosques and schools. However, this generosity had an unexpected effect. It caused massive inflation in the Egyptian market. The value of gold plummeted, and it took several years for the local economy to stabilize. This episode contributed to reinforcing Mansa Musa's legend as one of the richest men in history. Mansa Musa's generosity left a lasting impression. Accounts of his passage through Cairo quickly spread throughout the Muslim world and even to Europe, where the Mali Empire began to be depicted as a fabulously wealthy kingdom on medieval maps. After leaving Egypt, the expedition continued its journey to Mecca, the final destination of the pilgrimage. Mansa Musa performed the Hajj rituals with great fervor. He participated in collective prayers, offered sacrifices, and made significant donations to mosques and poor pilgrims. During his stay in Mecca, Musa connected with numerous scholars and merchants from across the Muslim world. He invited several of them to settle in Timbuktu, contributing to the intellectual and commercial development of his empire. The pilgrimage allowed Mansa Musa to strengthen diplomatic relations between Mali and major Muslim powers. He established lasting ties with influential rulers and dignitaries, further enhancing his empire's prestige. After completing his pilgrimage to Mecca, Mansa Musa began the return journey to his empire. This return trip was just as spectacular as the outbound journey, as the king did not return empty-handed. He brought back not only valuable knowledge gained from contact with the era's scholars, but also numerous foreign scholars, architects, and artisans who would contribute to the cultural and intellectual radiance of the Mali Empire. Throughout his return journey, Mansa Musa continued to demonstrate legendary generosity. In every city he passed through, he distributed gold to the inhabitants, funded the construction of mosques, and made donations to the needy. This massive distribution of wealth, though seen as an act of grandeur and piety, had unintended economic consequences, notably temporary inflation in some regions. Accounts report that, to stabilize the local economy after his passage through Cairo, Mansa Musa reportedly bought back large quantities of gold by borrowing at high rates. This gesture left a strong impression and showed how attentive he was to his empire's diplomatic and commercial relations. Mansa Musa's passage through major cities in the Muslim world strengthened the political and economic influence of the Mali Empire. By funding mosques and offering lavish gifts to local leaders, Musa secured the friendship of several kingdoms and caliphates. These diplomatic alliances expanded Mali's trade network, making it a privileged partner of the era's great powers. Malian caravans, already active on Saharan routes, were now better received in the cities of the Maghreb and the Near East, significantly increasing trade flows. One of the most valuable contributions of this pilgrimage was undoubtedly the arrival of new scholars, artisans, and architects whom Mansa Musa invited to follow him to Mali. These scholars, fascinated by the empire's wealth and power, agreed to settle there to teach their knowledge and contribute to the cultural and intellectual development of Timbuktu and other major Malian cities. Among them was Al-Saheli, a renowned Andalusian architect tasked with designing several iconic buildings. including the famous Jingriber Mosque in Timbuktu, as well as scholars from Cairo and Mecca who contributed to the establishment of numerous Quranic schools and libraries in the empire. These human contributions helped make Timbuktu a major intellectual center, attracting students from across Africa and beyond. Mansa Musa's triumphant return to Mali marked the beginning of a new era for the empire. This pilgrimage, far more than a mere religious journey, had profound economic, political, and cultural consequences. Economically, the pilgrimage had multiple effects. The massive distribution of gold in the regions he passed through caused a temporary devaluation of the precious metal, particularly in Egypt and the Maghreb. Although this inflation was seen as a short-term problem, it reinforced Mali's reputation as one of the world's leading gold producers. Thanks to the diplomatic alliances forged during the pilgrimage, Mali's trade network expanded significantly. The Saharan routes became safer and more frequented, increasing the exchange of goods like gold, salt, copper, and spices. Upon his return, Mansa Musa encouraged the diversification of the Malian economy by investing in agriculture and developing new infrastructure, notably roads and markets. The pilgrimage allowed Mansa Musa to assert his empire's international prestige. Upon his return, Mali was seen not only as a wealthy kingdom, but also as a respected power in the Muslim world. Mansa Musa's display of wealth and power strengthened his authority among local chiefs and Malian populations. His reign was henceforth perceived as a period of prosperity and stability. The alliances forged with major Muslim powers, particularly Egypt and the cities of the Hijaz, allowed Mali to play a significant diplomatic role in the region. These relations also facilitated the export of Malian wealth abroad. The greatest legacy of Mansa Musa's pilgrimage was undoubtedly cultural. Upon his return, he undertook major projects to develop education, religion, and art in his empire. With the help of al-Saheli and other foreign artisans, Mansa Musa built numerous mosques across the empire. These buildings became centers of prayer, learning, and community gathering. Mansa Musa founded several Quranic schools and universities, including the famous Sankore University in Timbuktu. This institution became one of the most prestigious learning centers in the Muslim world, attracting students and scholars from across the continent. Thanks to the scholars brought back from Mecca and Cairo, numerous religious, scientific, and philosophical manuscripts were introduced to Mali. These works enriched Timbuktu's libraries, which became renowned for their wealth and diversity. Mansa Musa's return marked the zenith of the Mali Empire. This pilgrimage, beyond being a logistical and diplomatic feat, transformed the empire economically, politically, and culturally. Mansa Musa's fame extended far beyond Africa, reaching Europe, where he was depicted as one of the richest kings in history on medieval maps. Upon his triumphant return from Mecca, Mansa Musa fully dedicated himself to consolidating his empire. Strengthened by the experience gained from contact with foreign powers and scholars during his pilgrimage, he undertook a series of reforms to modernize administration, stimulate the economy, and strengthen Mali's unity. Mansa Musa understood that his empire's stability and prosperity depended on a strong and well-organized central authority. Although the empire was composed of numerous semi-autonomous provinces, he established a system to maintain tight control over all territories. He ensured that all provincial governors, called farba, were trusted men appointed directly by him. These farba were responsible for tax collection, law enforcement, and maintaining order in their respective regions. Musa surrounded himself with a group of advisors comprising local dignitaries, Islamic jurists, and foreign scholars. This council played a key role in making important decisions, both domestically and internationally. Under his reign, local laws were harmonized with Islamic principles while respecting Mandinka customs. This approach strengthened cohesion among the empire's diverse communities. To manage such a vast empire, Mansa Musa implemented an advanced administrative system. He divided the empire into several provinces, each led by a governor. Each province was subdivided into districts administered by local chiefs. He established officials to oversee economic activities, infrastructure, and justice. These officials, recruited from the educated and scholarly, were trained in modern administrative practices. The Malian economy rested on two main pillars: trade and agriculture. Musa took several actions to strengthen these key sectors. He developed and secured new trade routes, particularly those connecting Timbuktu to Saharan regions. These routes facilitated the exchange of goods such as gold, salt, copper, and fabrics. He also signed trade agreements with neighboring kingdoms, facilitating cross-border exchanges. Mansa Musa invested in irrigation and encouraged the use of advanced agricultural techniques. He distributed seeds and tools to farmers and built granaries to store surplus harvests. Under Mansa Musa's reign, the Mali Empire continued to expand, reaching its territorial peak. It annexed new territories, integrating diverse peoples into the empire while maintaining relative peace through a policy of integration and respect for local cultures. The well-organized and well-equipped Malian armies conducted several military campaigns to expand the empire's borders. In the north, they repelled incursions by Saharan nomadic tribes and established firm control over desert trade routes. In the east, they annexed regions around the Niger River, consolidating their hold on fertile lands. In the south, they integrated forested kingdoms rich in resources, notably precious woods and ivory. Unlike many empires of the time, Mali under Mansa Musa adopted a policy of peaceful integration of conquered peoples. Local chiefs in annexed territories were often kept in place, provided they swore allegiance to the king and paid regular tribute. Musa encouraged the spread of Islam in new regions, but without imposing it by force. This religious tolerance helped maintain peace and stability within the empire. To ensure the security of these vast territories, Mansa Musa strengthened the Malian army and developed a network of fortifications along the borders. He also created an elite royal guard tasked with protecting the court and suppressing any rebellion attempts. Mansa Musa's reign was marked by an unprecedented cultural boom. Thanks to the scholars and artisans he brought back from his pilgrimage, he made Mali a major intellectual and artistic center of the time. Upon his return from Mecca, Mansa Musa invited several foreign scholars to settle in Timbuktu, which became the empire's intellectual capital. Among them were jurists, astronomers, mathematicians, and theologians from Egypt, the Maghreb, and the Near East. These scholars contributed to the advancement of sciences, philosophy, and literature in the empire. They taught in Quranic schools and universities, training a new generation of Malian intellectuals. Sankore University, founded under Mansa Musa's reign, became one of the most prestigious learning centers in the Muslim world. It attracted students from across Africa and even the Near East. Sankore included several faculties dedicated to Islamic sciences, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Students studied from rare manuscripts, some of which were brought back by Mansa Musa during his pilgrimage. Under Mansa Musa's impetus, numerous manuscripts were copied and distributed throughout the empire. These works, covering various topics, religion, sciences, history, contributed to the preservation and transmission of knowledge. Libraries were established in major Malian cities, notably Timbuktu, Djenné, and Gao. This dissemination of knowledge made Mali an intellectual reference in the Muslim world. After his triumphant return from Mecca and the implementation of his numerous political, economic, and cultural reforms, Mansa Musa continued to rule for several years. His reign was marked by an unprecedented period of prosperity, consolidating the Mali Empire as one of the most influential powers in the world in the 14th century. Toward the end of his life, Mansa Musa devoted more time to religion and charitable works. He continued to fund the construction of mosques, Quranic schools, and libraries across the empire. It is said that he spent long hours in prayer, surrounded by scholars and Muslim jurists, with whom he discussed theology and politics. However, old age and fatigue eventually weakened the sovereign. He then prepared his succession by designating his son, Mansa Musa, as his legitimate heir. Before retiring from public life, He ensured that he left a stable and well-organized empire, hoping his descendants would preserve the legacy he had built. After Mansa Musa's death, around 1337, his son Mansa Musa ascended to the throne. Although the latter was trained in the empire's governance, he lacked his father's wisdom and charisma. Under his reign, the empire began to show signs of weakness, particularly due to internal tensions and rebellions in some provinces. Over the decades, Mansa Musa's successors struggled to maintain the empire's unity and prosperity. Internal wars and the rise of new neighboring kingdoms gradually weakened Mali. The decline of the Mali Empire was a slow and gradual process, spanning several centuries. From the 15th century, the empire lost control of some of its richest provinces, particularly those in the north and west. The rise of the Songhai Empire, centered around Gao, posed a major threat to Mali. Under the leadership of Sunni Ali, the Songhai eventually conquered Timbuktu and other major Malian cities, depriving the empire of its main economic resources. By the 16th century, the Mali Empire was reduced to a fragmented kingdom, stripped of its former grandeur. Although the Mali Empire declined after Mansa Musa's death, his reign left an indelible mark on world history. His legendary pilgrimage, his renowned generosity, and the prosperity of his empire were recounted by numerous Arab and European chroniclers, shaping the image of a fabulously wealthy kingdom at the heart of Africa. Under Mansa Musa's reign, Mali became a model of governance, economic prosperity, and cultural radiance for many West African kingdoms. The spread of Islam throughout the region facilitated the religious and cultural unification of many peoples, fostering peace and commercial exchanges. Major Malian cities, such as Timbuktu and Djenné, continue to be important intellectual and commercial centers even after the empire's fall. The accounts of Mansa Musa's pilgrimage spread rapidly throughout the Muslim world thanks to Arab chroniclers, notably Al-Amari and Ibn Khaldun, who described the extraordinary wealth of the Malian king and the grandeur of his empire. In Europe, Mansa Musa's stories inspired cartographers and explorers. On the famous Catalan Atlas world map of 1375, Mansa Musa is depicted holding a massive gold bar, a symbol of his unparalleled wealth. This image fueled legends about Africa's gold and motivated European explorers to seek trade routes to the continent. On several medieval maps, West Africa was depicted as a region teeming with riches, largely due to Mansa Musa's fame. These geographical representations helped create the idea of an African El Dorado and sparked European curiosity as they sought to establish direct trade routes with the region. Mansa Musa remains in history as one of the richest men to have ever lived. Modern historians estimate that his fortune, adjusted for inflation, would be equivalent to several $100 billion today, or even more. Compared to modern fortunes, Mansa Musa surpasses figures like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, or Bill Gates. However, unlike contemporary billionaires, Mansa Musa's wealth was not individual, but derived from his empire's natural resources, which he generously redistributed to his subjects in neighboring countries. Mansa Musa's story has inspired many modern works. In literature, several historical novels and comics have been published, recounting his life and famous pilgrimage. Mansa Musa remains a symbol of Africa's past grandeur. His story is taught in schools in many West African countries, and his name is associated with values of enlightened leadership, piety, and generosity. Moreover, he inspires a new generation of Africans to explore and value their continent's cultural and historical heritage. If this incredible story of Mansa Musa has captivated you, and you want to discover other fascinating tales about great African figures and civilizations, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. This greatly helps me continue creating quality content and ensures you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thank you for your support.